all that remains for me to say is that it is my absolute pleasure, as I've said, to hand over to Karen and Richard, who are going to talk to us about the work of the RSP, the data they use, to get that in there, and how they are, as we've said, future-proofing the economy. So Karen, I think it's over to you first.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks for that. Good afternoon, all. I could see some of you popping up around the screen. Some of you I know, but for the benefit of those who I don't know. So I'm Karen Grimes, one of 2 RSP managers for the Cardiff Capital Region Skills Partnership. I'm also joined by my colleague and counterpart, Richard Tobert. So we'll be acting as a bit of a double act today, passing back and forth for this presentation. But before I get into the slides, I just wanted to say thanks to Suzanne and the team for giving us the opportunity to give a bit of an update on our work. So next slide, please. So this slide just provides a bit of a quick overview of our presentation. So we intend to briefly cover the background of the RSPs and before focusing on some of our key deliverables from our last employment and skills plan, which ran from 2019 to 2022. But the main focus of our slides will be our current employment and skills plan, which was launched back in 2022 and will run right through to 2025. So we'll be happy to share a copy of our slides after the session, along with a link to our most recent employment and skills plan. Next slide, please. So both Richard and I are responsible for the strategic management and delivery of the Regional Skills Partnership, providing strategic leadership and advice to facilitate and develop quite significant step change, collaborative working and ultimately improvement for the stakeholders within the region. So just a little bit about the team. So Rich, he's got a wealth of experience, having worked across the skills landscape for over 20 years, and he holds a broad range of related job roles. So I'm nearly catching up with Rich in terms of experience, as I've got about 18 years experience in the world of skills. So Vicky, who is also with us today, she's fairly new to the team. I think she's in her 3rd week with us. So we've let her off today. She's just used to see what we do in these presentations. So, but Vicky provides myself and Rich with support for all our priority cluster groups and our stakeholder groups. But she also looks after our marketing and comms and so much more that we're going to throw at her over the next couple of weeks. But she's only been with us for a short time, but she's already proved that we can't be without her. So next slide, please. Okay, so I think the first thing to mention is that Welsh Government are committed to a regional approach when it comes to skills, and this is set out in quite a broad range of policies. It's fair to say there's 4 regional skills partnerships operating in Wales, one that covers the north, one that covers the mid, and then South West Wales, and then us in the South East Wales region then. So each of the 4 RSPs play a really important role when working with employers to understand their skills needs. So this information then is used when we make recommendations back to Welsh Government on the skills priorities for employers, which influences how post-16 education is funded. I think it's fair to say that we as RSPs have got quite strategic significance for Welsh Government, and we play quite an important role when shaping the skills landscape. So within the Welsh Government Programme for Government, there are references to strengthening our role, and we're also mentioned in a range of policies and strategies. So the apprenticeship policy, the employability and skills plan, and more recently, the net zero skills plan. So our 4 key roles are listed here in this slide. So the CCRSP, so the Cardiff Capital Region Skills Partnership fulfills the role of the RSP in South East Wales, as I mentioned, but this covers the 10 local authority areas. So work is driven through our Employment Skills Board, which is made up of employers and stakeholders, and one of the advisory boards feeding into the Cardiff Capital Region City deal. We've also developed a range of employer-led priority sector cluster groups, which inform our work, but we'll explain a little bit more on that later. So that's enough for me for a minute. So as an introduction, so I'm just going to pass the baton on to Rich for the next couple of slides.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. And obviously, as Karen suggested, thank you very much to Suzanne and the team at Data Cymru for hosting us this morning. And it's also great to see so many familiar names in the in the Teams chat as well. So yeah, look forward to working with you this morning and into the future as well. So from my perspective then, if we could move on to the next slide, that'd be great. And as Karen touched on, really, I think it's important to say that our employment and skills plan is probably our key deliverable through our Welsh Government funded programme of work. Before we focus specifically on our recently launched employment and skills plan, I think it was important just to set a bit more context maybe and cover off some of the key successes from our last 3-year plan, which covered the period 2019 and through to 2022. So just quickly, if I could cover some of this off, we very much supported the development of the local authority employment and skills reference group that is kindly chaired by Lisa Jones from Bridgend County Borough Council. And we've also engaged very much so with the regional engagement team, I think it'd be fair to say, over the lifespan of that 3-year plan. And great to see both Lisa and Amy on the call this morning. Moving on specifically in terms of the Welsh Government Young Persons Guarantee, I'm sure people on the call will be more than aware that the YPG provides under 25s in Wales with the offer of support to join a place in education and training, find a job or become self-employed. Throughout the lifespan of our 3-year plan, we've been supporting Welsh Government in this regard, and we've been mapping the availability of regional projects and programmes that align very much to the YPG. We're going to talk a lot, I think, this morning about the personal learning account programme, so I'm not going to elaborate too much here, but just wanted to make sure that we mention that we've been supporting Welsh Government in the rollout of the PLA programme, which annually provides around about £17 million worth of Welsh Government funding for short courses and qualifications. We've also produced a regional outline plan for the FE sector, which tries to ensure that the alignment of provision with the challenges and needs that are faced by employers across South East Wales. We've also undertaken a strategic occupational trends exercise on behalf of Welsh Government, and that piece of work very much influences the development of new National Occupational Standards, or NOS. Those NOS provide the building blocks for vocational qualifications. And we also have continued to support Welsh Government's flagship apprenticeship programme, and we've supported the development and delivery of new apprenticeship frameworks and all important developments in this space, like degree apprenticeships or shared apprenticeship programmes. Moving on, we've worked strategically with Qualifications Wales, and we've represented employers as part of sector reviews that have been undertaken across a broad range of sectors, including health, social care and childcare, construction and the built environment, energy, advanced manufacturing and engineering, and also travel, tourism, hospitality and catering. We've also developed a really important relationship with Careers Wales as part of the important information, advice and guidance landscape. And we've been informing the development of the new curriculum for Wales, and particularly the CWRE strand, which is careers and work-related experience. So we've worked collaboratively with Welsh Government as part of the development of statutory guidance in that space. And then finally, then for me on this slide, we've been promoting the development of provision to meet net zero, something that's obviously very important to us all. We've supported Welsh Government with their funding through the Green PLA programme that's provided an additional £2 million for courses and qualifications. And we've collaborated with all of the 4 regional skills partnerships that Karen made reference to earlier on a piece of research that we actually did in partnership with Data Cymru as well, that's entitled The Labour Market of Tomorrow. And here we've looked at the jobs, skills and transition to a green economy. And that report's available for download as well through our website. So next slide, please. So for us now, then, it's very much, out with the old and in with the new. And I think it'd be fair to say that the rest of the presentation will very much be focusing on our latest 3-year plan, which we've branded Prosperity Through Partnership. And this strategic plan will take us through to the autumn of 2025. Next slide, please. As you'd expect, though, as part of the refresh process and with this new iteration of our plan, it will allow us to continue some of the work that I made reference to earlier, to ensure that there's, fit for purpose progression, if you'd like. But just wanted to let people know that we successfully launched the new plan on the 21st of November 2022. So obviously we're roughly around about 1 year in to this new 3-year plan, and that successful launch was took place at the Mercure Hotel in Newport, and it was an event that we very much secured solid engagement and attendance, and also secured ministerial support through Vaughan Gethin, the economy minister as well. Just to touch broadly, I suppose, on the refresh process, and as you'd expect, it's provided us with an opportunity to progress some high-level changes, if you like, from our old plan to our new plan. And just to kind of elaborate on some of that, we've brought in fintech as one of our new key sectors. And we now very much consider digital technology and net zero as cross-cutting themes, as opposed to standalone sectors, which we treated them as previously. And I think that's, generally recognising the significance that digital and net zero is having across the regional economy, regardless what sector you're operating in. The other thing to focus on as part of this slide, that I think, is that our plan was very much informed through the triangulation of labour market intelligence that we secured through some of our stakeholders, whether that be, for example, the CITB, Industry Wales, or CS Connected, which are operating in the compound semiconductor sector, or through the focus group sessions that we held specifically with our priority sector cluster groups. And we also undertook our very own skill survey, for which we managed to secure around about 400 responses. So it was those kind of 3 mechanisms, if you like, that provided us with the labour market intelligence, the LMI, that helped us to shape and inform the development of our plan. Next slide, please. So this slide just wanted to kind of shine a bit of a light really on our employer skills survey. Again, something that we rolled out collaboratively with our colleagues in Data Cymru. We launched our employer skills survey in April 2022, and then we closed it in September. So it was open for around about 6 months. And if I was to be honest, and Karen, I'm sure will share my views here, I think it'd be fair to say we were a little bit disappointed at the response rate we had to that survey. So a bit of an elephant in the room. We just want to make that clear and flag that up now. But we were very much informed of quite a bit of survey fatigue that was taking place whilst we were trying to roll out our skills survey. Ever the optimist, though, concentrate on the positives, I suppose. Just wanted to mention that 400 response rate was well over double that we secured back in 2019. So that's a bit of a good news story, I suppose. If anyone on the call has got a specific interest in the survey itself, we've very much got an interactive Power BI dashboard that sits on our website should anyone want to interrogate the data a little bit more. And the web link to that Power BI dashboard is shown in this slide. You don't need to scribble down at this moment in time, because I'm reassured that the slides are going to go out post-session as well, so everyone will get access to that web link. And in terms of the next few slides then, what we wanted to do is to talk you through some of the high-level findings that we identified through that skills survey. So next slide, please. And I believe that's the buttons. Back to you, Karen. Over to you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rich. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see the detail in this slide, but don't worry, we're going to share them afterwards. But in a nutshell, and across all sectors of the regional economy, businesses generally referred to the following as the main challenges that they were facing at the time. So things like recruitment, skills, developing staff, financials, retention of staff and sector perception all really featured quite strongly. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so just to unpick the current skills challenges a little, around 68% of businesses said that they were currently experiencing skills challenges, particularly in skilled trades and occupations. So just to elaborate on this a little bit, businesses reported skills challenges with new technology, leadership and management, problem solving, project management, communication as well, and computer literacy. So with this in mind, I think we really shouldn't underestimate the significance of soft skills or key skills. Go on to the next slide, please, Jodie, thanks. Okay, so moving on to future challenges, as you would probably expect, digital tech and skills related to net zero were very much in focus across all the sectors, which this just really strengthens our decision to designate digital tech and net zero as a cross-cutting theme across our plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to focus on recruitment, so over 75% of respondents said they were planning to recruit over the next 12 months, but then only 13% confidently suggested that these recruits would be work ready. Really low numbers there. So clearly recruitment was a challenge, as around 75% of respondents said that they had difficulties recruiting staff. So also, it was interesting to note how important a positive attitude and motivation was when becoming work ready. So on to the next slide, please. Great, I think that's over to you again now, Rich.
Thanks, Karen. I'm trying to multitask here as well. So I've just put, before I move on, just quickly pick up one of the questions that's come in on the chat now. From yourself, Emma, in terms of what we would do differently in terms of the survey if we were to roll that out again. I think it'd be fair to say that neither myself or Karen are researchers. Therefore, we would definitely be looking to seek advice and guidance from Data Cymru, who we work very closely with in terms of the survey itself. We did an awful lot actually to enhance the number of responses we got, hence the fact that we did more than double it. But I think what we would try and do as well is to perhaps collaborate a little bit more with key stakeholders who were maybe undertaking surveys at the same time, to see if there was a way that we could not compete with each other in terms of survey responses, but pull it all together into one kind of regional process. But yeah, so that's just some initial thoughts and observations in relation to that. In terms of the slide then, and in terms of training in particular, we just wanted to make people aware that 60% of respondents did say that they didn't experience barriers to training, which is particularly positive. But those that did report barriers highlighted a lack of funding and the time, and it's really important this, and people on the call I'm sure will resonate. But quite often the lack of time lost releasing staff is often reported as a barrier when engaging with training. In terms of awareness of funding programs, as many people will expect, programs like apprenticeships, the personal learning account that we've talked about, Jobs Growth Wales, and programs offered through ESF funding routes featured very strongly. Next slide, please. So finally, to focus a little bit more on apprenticeships in particular, around 53% of businesses suggested that they employed apprentices, and support for degree apprenticeships that are being piloted here in Wales in certain sectors, namely digital technology and engineering, were very much identified and supported, as I say, as well as shared apprenticeship programs, which are particularly successful within our region. And again, we'll touch a bit more on that a little bit later. And in terms of the barriers, and for some businesses, it was reported to us that there are occasions where apprenticeship frameworks here in Wales are not always fit for purpose, particularly when comparing those with some of the apprenticeship standards that are currently operating across the border in England. And last but not least, 61% of businesses offered work experience. Next slide, please. So moving on then, the plan for us has very much allowed us to reaffirm the key sectors for the regional economy here in South East Wales. And those are very much set out in the slide that you can see on screen. So just to go through them quite quickly, some of our key sectors here in South East Wales are advanced materials and manufacturing, compound semiconductors, construction, creative, fintech, and the foundational economy. The reasons that those sectors have been identified as key are primarily due to the fact that, one, they may employ significant volumes of people. Two, they contribute significantly to the regional economy in terms of GVA. Or three, the sectors very much align with the broader work of the Cardiff Capital Region City Deal Office. And people will be aware, I'm sure, that City Deal is bringing in around £1.2 billion worth of UK government investment. So for us, each of the key sectors has an associated employer-led cluster group. And that group, as I suggested earlier, has been very much driving the direction of travel through our employment and skills plan, and has been setting out some of the key challenges and opportunities that need to be addressed over the next 3-year term. It's important also to stress that some of our cluster groups are perhaps more developed than others, particularly because they've been around a lot longer. And just to elaborate on that, I suppose, fintech, for example, is one of our brand new priority sectors here in South East Wales. And there's a bit more work to do to ensure that that cluster group is set up and driving our work streams. However, we are working very closely with Fintech Wales in that regard, and we've made some good traction, I suppose, over the last sort of 6 months or so. The other thing I just wanted to touch on quickly in terms of this slide is that, other regional skills partnerships across Wales will certainly have their own priority sectors as well. But I think it'd be fair to say that there'll certainly be a lot of consistency as well across RSP areas. So, just looking at construction and health and social care, for example, even though that's a priority here in South East Wales, that will certainly be the case in other regions as well. Next slide, please. So as a result of our sector and stakeholder engagement, we've developed 7 cross-cutting themes, which seem to be consistent across each of our priority sectors. And in this regard, and over the next 3 years, we will be progressing some pretty significant work streams in terms of these 7 cross-cutting themes. Just to go through them quite quickly, we'll be strengthening the post-16 FE offer in priority sectors. We'll be broadening the apprenticeship offer at higher levels. We'll be engaging with key stakeholders when supporting Wales's employability agenda, and we'll be targeting individuals furthest away from the labour market. We'll also be promoting digital technology, as I mentioned earlier, as a key enabling sector to help create a workforce that has the digital skills, capability and confidence to excel in the workplace and in everyday life. We'll be developing skills to support the transition towards a low carbon economy. We'll continue to influence the work of Qualifications Wales, and really significantly, we'll continue to build on our approaches to careers education, information, advice and guidance to address issues of sector perception. And as you would expect, we'll be working very strategically with Careers Wales in that regard. So the rest of the presentation for us will quickly focus on each of these 7 cross-cutting themes, and we'll provide you with a bit of a flavour of some of the activities that we'll be progressing through to 2025. So next slide, please. So cross-cutting theme 1 then, strengthening the post-16 education offer in priority sectors. Moving forward, we'll be using our labour market intelligence to drive regional priorities for FE, and we'll further support the expansion of the all-important Welsh Government flagship personal learning account programme. Again, I'm not going to say much more on that because we'll cover it off, I think, as a later slide. We'll continue to support the development of skills and talent pipelines through academy and bootcamp models, and I'm sure that people will have picked up on a lot of kind of skills academy activity, either that progressed through the Cardiff Capital Region City Deal Office, for example, or through some of the Welsh Government funding streams, for example, through Creative Wales as well. But we'll be very much promoting partnership activity between industry, education and government in that regard. We'll also remain aware of the significant development of the new Commission for Education, Training and Research, CETA, and I'm sure people will be picking up on some of the work streams in train there. So CETA comes into existence in April next year as a pretty significant body that will be funding and developing all post-16 education and training. It will also see the abolishment of HEFCW as the Higher Education Funding Council for Wales, which will be subsumed into the new commission. So there's lots of work happening in that regard to formally establish the commission by April next year. Next slide, please. In terms of cross-cutting theme 2, broadening the apprenticeship offer at high levels by responding to government policy changes. Moving forward, we'll be using our evidence base to influence the development of new apprenticeship frameworks. And I'm pleased to say that there's an awful lot of good work taking place in this space with some of our stakeholders. And within, for example, advanced materials and manufacturing, we're working well with Welsh Government and Industry Wales on the development of new apprenticeship frameworks there, recognising some of the positivity across the border in England with the apprenticeship standard in that space. And digital technology, we've been working collaboratively with ODAG consultants, who are one of Welsh Government's preferred suppliers, to ensure that new apprenticeships in digital technology are very much fit for purpose and aligned to the needs of employers. Moving on, we will increase apprenticeship uptake in growth sectors, including degree apprenticeships, and build on the successful Aspire, Apprentice and Skill Cymru shared apprenticeship models. And significantly as well, with the increasing onus and emphasis on apprenticeships, we'll need to support and increase recruitment of trainers and assessors to ensure capacity within the post-16 work-based learning sector. Next slide, please. So cross-cutting theme 3, in terms of engaging with key stakeholders when supporting Wales's employability agenda, we anticipate influencing the direction of emerging shared prosperity fund activities, and particularly those that relate to people and skills, to ensure that we maximise opportunities across South East Wales. And just to elaborate on that, we are working quite closely with Rhondda and Taff County Borough Council who are, leading some of the SPF activity. We've developed a good relationship there, and we are very much looking to ensure that our employment and skills plan is used as a vehicle when driving some of the all-important work streams that are progressing there. We've also quite recently developed a positive working relationship as well with the Cardiff Capital Region City Deal Office through their Cluster Development and Growth Programme, which will be bringing in around about £6.6 million for some targeted interventions that have skills very much in focus, particularly within digital, advanced materials and manufacturing, and in the net zero sectors as well. We'll continue to support our Young Persons Guarantee Programme, again, as a Welsh Government flagship programme. I've touched on that earlier within the presentation. But for us, and through our Young Persons Guarantee funding streams, we're hoping to produce an easy read version of our strategic employment and skills plan that will be accessible and understandable for young people, because at the moment, I think it's fair to say it's quite a strategic high-level document. We're also looking to produce some careers roadmaps for each of our priority sectors through that route. And we've already established a Young Persons Guarantee Advisory Group, which is very much influencing some of the Pan-Wales activity that Welsh Government are progressing in this space. So next slide, please.
So over to me
sorry,
now,
it's back to you, Kat. Over to you. Thank you.
My fellow chuckle brother there. Thanks, Rich. Okay, so in regards to cross-cutting theme 4, promoting digital tech as a key sector, we as the CCRSP have gathered intelligence, which has been used to assist in the future prioritisation of National Occupational Standards, so NOS. We have engaged with our cluster groups and we've provided intel on the job roles that are in decline, emerging or deemed as priority. So using this intelligence, Welsh Gov has provided funding, like Rich said earlier, to ODAG Consultants Limited, who is developing new suites of NOS, which could be used to support the further development of digital tech quals. Focus has been placed on refresh NOS for business analysis, digital learning development, user-centered design and data engineering. So we have and continue to encourage key stakeholders to engage in this important project. Okay, so the next objective. So in relation to personal learning accounts, I know Rich touched on this a little bit earlier. We've worked with both Welsh Government and regional FEIs to ensure that the PLA skills and qualification offer is aligned to the needs of employers through an endorsement process. So in this regard, then, we endorse provision which is aligned to digital tech and has promoted opportunities through PLA enhanced package of support. So we also promote and advocate for the utilisation of Welsh Government's flexible skills programme, which could provide 50% of funding for training and development for eligible employers. So this next objective then, so Welsh Government are organising the degree apprenticeships to align with the new digital tech pathways across levels 2 to 4, and looking at where gaps exist. There are recommendations to develop new pathways, including at degree apprenticeship level and areas including cloud engineering and potentially fintech as well. We've established effective relationships with the successful Aspire Apprentice and Skills Cymru shared apprenticeship schemes that Rich mentioned earlier, but we have provided endorsement that those programmes continue to operate and develop. We're also exploring the development of schemes for the digital tech sector via Aspire. And we've liaised with the City Deal Office in relation to enhancing programmes through the Venture brand as well. Next slide, please, Jodie. Thanks. Okay, so in regards to this theme, and on the back of Welsh Government's net zero plan, net zero skills plan, sorry, we, along with other RSPs, are supporting a broad range of work streams to help employers transition towards net zero. So this includes things like promoting further consultation, leading to the development of the skills roadmaps for Wales in high emitting sectors, supporting the development of consistent terminology related to net zero through a glossary of definitions, and participating in a broad range of Welsh Government marketing campaigns and comms working groups to raise awareness of the plan and key messages. We've also engaged with the construction cluster group, who have provided intelligence on the job roles that are in decline, emerging or priority to meet the net zero aspirations. So in terms of this next objective, we are representing employers on the Welsh Government Green PLA Expert Group. This plays a really key role when identifying and improving the green PLA courses eligible for PLA funding. We've also advocating for the inclusion of green provision through the flexible skills programme as well. So this third objective picked out here, I just wanted to highlight there are a broad range of stakeholders with a particular interest in Wales's net zero agenda, and therefore collaborative approaches are quite key. We are active members of the Pan Wales Net Zero and Economy Advisory Forum, which is facilitated by Swansea Uni. The Net Zero Industry Skills, Wales Skills and Education Group, which is facilitated by ECTIB. And we've also developed a positive working relationship with the new trade body for the hydrogen sector. Okay, can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so with focus on influencing the work of Qualifications Wales, we as the CCRSP have developed a positive working relationship with them as the body of Wales, and has identified a key point of contact for all correspondence. We've also facilitated agenda items at our sector cluster groups, where Qualifications Wales delivered detailed presentations on their key developments. We've also sat on Quals Wales Sector Review Stakeholder panel for Advanced Manufacturing and Engineering, along with some of the members from our AMM cluster group as well. And we attend regular meetings. So findings and recommendations from Qualifications Wales sector reviews are referenced in planning discussions with providers, and we have also been supportive of developments to introduce a GCSE in engineering. We've also engaged with the Qualifications Wales Travel and Tourism, Hospitality and Catering sector review. We facilitated a detailed presentation to our HFE Hospitality, Retail and Tourism Cluster Group on the findings there. We continue to have a positive working relationship with Cardiff Commitment, some of you might know those, who are progressing a range of learning opportunities for teachers across the Cardiff area, and through their experience of work pilot and their growth sector CPD activities. But just to expand a little bit on that, we have supported a successful Cardiff Commitment Growth Sector event, the Schools of Today, Creating and Shaping the Workforce for Tomorrow. This event took place back in May. Feels like yesterday, but it's gone quite quickly. But that brought together around 100 school leaders and stakeholders from across the Cardiff Southern Arc. Okay, so lastly for this slide, and as part of the Qualified for the Future, we also participated in a consultation on the wider qualifications offer at 14 to 16. And we also facilitated dialogue with stakeholders to explore views on which qualifications should be available, alongside the new GCSEs to meet the needs of learners. More recently, though, we've engaged with Qualifications Wales on the development of the full 14 to 16 qualifications offer, which includes proposals to develop a new skills suite. Can we go into the next slide, please? Fab. So with regards to collaboration with Careers Wales and in partnership with Careers Wales, we've established a strategic working group across all our priority clusters. And as a group, we meet biannually, which oversees the development and delivery of the SIAG action plan. The action plan was developed really on the back of a detailed mapping carried out by Wavehill, and provides a mandate for us all as the CCRSP and Careers Wales related work streams. So objective there, as always, we continue to support the CCR Venture Graduate Programme to connect talented graduates with businesses across South East Wales. But we also continue to support related events and seminars and have provided opportunities for the Venture Scheme to promote their programme across our networks and our priority cluster groups. As mentioned in the last slide, we do support the development of Cardiff Commitment initiative. And aside from the event we attended back in May for school leaders, as a team, we have attended meetings of the Strategic Leadership Group and have attended a broad range of events and seminars. Okay, so last little bit there. We've worked with Welsh Government regarding careers and work-related experiences, or you might see the acronym as CWRE, as a cross-cutting element of the new curriculum for learners aged 3 to 16. We inputted as part of the expert advisory group, along with many other stakeholders, and helped to shape the guidance for that. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, that brings us to the end of our death by PowerPoint, guys. So we're happy to take any questions now. And I know that Suzanne is going to send out our details. So if you don't want to ask questions within this forum, feel free to drop myself, Rich and Vicky an email, and we will get back to you with any questions that we can answer that we may not be able to answer now.
Thank you very much for all. We have actually got a lot of questions. So that's wow. Really, really positive. So that's really good. Some have been answered. Trying to keep an eye on them. But if I may, as always, I'm going to ask a question first. And I appreciate that this may be one you may not be able to answer. But obviously, I'm conscious that there may be some people in the chat who may be not in the CCR region. And while it's really, really genuinely useful and interesting to hear what's going on, I guess my question is, obviously, there are 3 other RSPs, Regional Skills Partnerships across Wales, all, as you said at the beginning, with the same role. Do you know, can you say to what extent there is, what can I say, consistency in work plans and programmes? I'm just wondering if you're in a different area, can you expect to see a lot of what you've already talked about in those areas as well? Anything you could kind of impart on that would be really useful.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that one up, Karen, if that's okay. And thanks for the question, Suzanne. I think I kind of touched on this as part of my presentation, really. I think it's fair to, well, the first thing to say is that all regional skills partnerships are funded on an equal shares basis and through a Welsh Government grant-funded programme of work. Therefore, we've all got consistent expectations from Welsh Government in terms of what we deliver against. One of our key deliverables, quite naturally, is the Employment and Skills Plan, which is what we're here to talk about this morning. There is a lot of consistency in certain sectors. You know, I named them. You know, construction, you'll see feature heavily across all RSP areas. Health, social care, manufacturing, just to name but a few. But there's definitely divergences as well. So there's a lot of consistency, but there's also divergence. And again, just to elaborate on that, I suppose, as you'd expect, you know, agriculture is probably a key sector for the regional economy in Mid Wales, not so much for us here in South East Wales. And focusing on South East Wales as well, we've also got some niche sector activity as well that's reflected through our plan. Just to elaborate again, compound semiconductors along the M4 corridor for us is hugely significant, both here but globally as well. Not so much perhaps in some of the other regions. And fintech as well, even though I know, you know, Gemma Hallett's on the call, which is great, and she's got an awful lot of expertise in this area. Very much a strength of the region here in South East Wales and beyond, but certainly here in South East Wales. So hopefully that helps, Suzanne.
Absolutely, thank you very much. And I just think I'm harking back to obviously you represent the RSPs on a lot of different networks and relationships with the various different bodies, and presumably that's the same across Wales.
Yeah, it is the same. I think it's also important to stress as well, we do try and be as collaboratively, we do try and be as collaborative as for regional skills partnerships as we can. So quite often we do sit on Pan Wales groups where we rotate our engagement, but we quite rightly sit on, you know, certain sector groups as well that have got prominence in the region. Just in the net zero space, I know there's been a few questions around net zero. You know, just to flag up a bit of a concern of mine, I suppose. The amount of groups that are being established in certain areas is beyond belief at the moment, and that's posing a bit of a challenge capacity-wise, because as you can see, we're a relatively small team. And just looking at net zero alone, I know I sit on at least 4, if not 5, different groups that are looking at net zero here in South East Wales. So, you know, there's some consistency and, you know, consolidation I think that we need to do in that space, working collaboratively with Welsh Government, I think.
Thank you for that. Right, I'm going to go on to the questions that have been posed by our attendees. So I think a couple have been answered, so I'm going to go straight on to does the LMI that informed the plan include data indicators on fair work, and how are your plans linked with Welsh Government's ambition of becoming a fair work nation?
Yeah, I think just before I start talking, I'm certainly not an expert on fair work, so apologies for that. However, if I'm not sure who's posed the question, but I did see it when it came in. We've got a full plan that sits on our website that anyone who wants to have a good look at that can obviously do so. Pleased to say there is a reference in that plan to fair work and the importance of fair work, and obviously the equality, diversity and inclusion agenda is very much featured in that plan. I don't think our plan has reflected the indicators in too much detail, but I think it's important for us to say that we will drive forward the fair work agenda through our work streams. And I'm also pleased to say that we've got Wales TUC very active around our employment and skills board table, which Karen made reference to earlier, and we do anticipate collaborating with them around the fair work agenda and thinking about social partnership and procurement as well. So yeah, there are references in our full plan to that all important agenda.
Brilliant, thank you very much. There's comments coming in left, right and centre, so I'm trying to stay on top of them. So what I should say, I guess, is we've got about 8 minutes left, so we'll keep going. But hopefully, if we don't get to all the questions, are you okay to go into the chat afterwards and maybe have a look, and if there are questions that have remained unanswered? Brilliant, thank you both. Okay, so is there a breakdown of public sector responses in the survey, as there are a whole host of occupations in this category? I think when you saw the data, a lot of people started getting really interested and wanted to delve behind it. I've glossed over one saying yes, can we see the data? But yeah, is there a breakdown of public sector responses, and is that available?
On that one, that's probably something I'd be keen to take offline with the person who's posed the question, because our survey is very much done collaboratively with colleague Suzanne within Data Cymru. So I'm sure that we would be looking to draw on Jack's advice and guidance in that space to provide an accurate response, unless he's on the call and he wants to chip in.
He can't, unfortunately. We've taken his microphone off, but maybe we can. But thank you. Yeah, okay, fine. We've got the details and we can follow that up. Okay, let's see the next one. It's interesting that you have asked about the awareness about apprenticeships, but were there any questions about the effectiveness of the apprenticeship offering?
No, I don't think is the honest, quick answer. And that's perhaps something, you know, for lessons learned in terms of moving forward, we could reflect. But obviously there are, you know, we have to think about what our role and mandate and remit is, and there are other organisations out there who have the role to assess the effectiveness of, you know, apprenticeship delivery, like Estin, and I know that they go out and inspect work-based learning provision, and will have a view on that, and their reports are available in the public domain.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to hone in on questions. It would be interesting to see if Qualification Wales realign course aims and objectives and outcomes with net zero sustainability principles. Feels like this is missing. Not sure that's a question, actually. So apologies.
But just on that though, Suzanne,
please.
And again, it's probably a good time to do this. At this moment in time, Welsh Government are consulting on kind of the net zero skills plan, and that's available in the public domain. I think the consultation runs through to the end of the year, so 31st of December, I believe. And anyone who's got an interest in that space can certainly engage in that consultation. And the comment that's been raised will be quite an important one, I believe, to feed in as part of that consultation.
Fabulous, thank you very much. This is a question here. So the person understands the reasons behind having different priorities across the RSP regions, obviously. But for example, when talking about agriculture and land management, how are you ensuring input from across all the regions into the work that maybe just one RSP is focusing on?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question again?
Yeah, sorry. So when we're looking at, for example, agriculture and land management skills, how are we ensuring input from across all the regions into the work that maybe it's just that one RSP is focusing on? So do you have the opportunity to share ideas and get involved, even if agriculture and land management, for example, isn't a priority for you?
Yeah, we certainly do. Like I say, we do collaborate and work very closely together as 4 regional skills partnerships, and that's probably a key role, I think, for Welsh Government as well in terms of pulling that together. I know that they've been working quite closely certainly in agriculture over the last couple of years, and things like the personal learning account programme, for example, is a really good way of ensuring that provision is further developed across the regions in certain sectors, to address the needs of businesses on a regional basis, really. So we do share information and intelligence around what should and shouldn't be funded through the PLA route, I suppose.
Fabulous, thank you very much. And I think this might be the last question, actually, so we might be bang on time. What are your thoughts about the changes that are happening in England, re the lifelong learning entitlement, and what can you see happening in Wales? If that is something you can cover.
Sorry, Karen, I feel like I'm hogging all of this, so I do apologise. I'll crack on. I think the first and important thing to say is it's England, therefore it's certainly not my comfort zone or my remit or area of expertise. However, I'm fully aware that Sharon Lusher over the last 12 months has been consulting and engaging broadly through her review of vocational qualifications here in Wales, and her report has recently been made available as a result of her findings that's got, well, I couldn't name the figure, but I certainly think it's between 30 and 40 specific recommendations back to Welsh Government, and it'll be for Welsh Government to either accept or reject those recommendations. But as part of Sharon's work, I know she was looking at the skills landscape across the border in England to, look at some good practice and what could be brought forward here in a Welsh context. And apprenticeships was very much as part of that process, but also T levels, which are being delivered across the border in England. I think as part of that piece of work, Sharon was looking at if there's scope for looking at some of the successes through T levels and to introduce those into a Welsh context as well. So I've kind of partly answered the question, I think, but probably not wholly because it's not my area of expertise. But I strongly recommend looking at the review of vocational qualifications that Sharon has undertaken on behalf of Welsh Government, because that takes some of that work forward, I suppose.
Brilliant. Well, we have actually covered all the questions, so I think there's one thing that we'll follow up on outside of the meeting, and obviously the contact details were on the slides and will be on the slides when you receive them all. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much to Karen, Richard and Vicky for presenting today, and for all of you for attending, and we hope to see you at our future sessions, and thank you very much.
Thanks all. Thanks.